filmmakers and film fans have embraced this format, but only in the last couple of years has it really started to take off.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most famous items and services that are no longer widely used.
Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing.
Number 30. Landline phones.
Plus, is it the end of the line for traditional phone service in California?
It's amazing how quickly phone technology accelerates. Back in 2003, the CIA World Factbook estimated that there were nearly 1.3 billion landline phones in use around the world. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find even one. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but there's no denying that cell phones have greatly eclipsed the landline and made them almost obsolete. By 2013, just 10 years after the CIA study, 91% of American adults owned a cell phone, and by 2022, 3 out of 4 American households exclusively used a cell phone, with only 1% of households only using a landline. Indeed, some countries are beginning to terminate their landline networks, effectively signaling the beginning of the end.
And now we're talking about AT&T wants to get rid of it in all of California.
Number 29. Overhead projectors.
And schools all had these, and most business offices that did any sort of presentation stuff would have one too.
Anyone who went to school between the 60s and 2000s surely remembers those overhead projectors that the teachers used to roll into the room. They were bulky and heavy. They often took up a good amount of space, and the projections often appeared brownish and hard to read. These were a common fixture in classrooms around the world, being relatively cheap and affording some type of interactive education with students. But now, thanks to new tech like interactive whiteboards and digital projection, these clunky things, much like the slider projector before it, have been taken out back and thrown in the dumpster.
Hey-ho, Silver, away!
Number 28. Nickel.
This is the smoking section.
I don't care if it's the smoking section. All right? She directed it right in my face.
Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, cigarette smoking was being phased out in public areas, so people sought the alternatives. Enter Nickel, which was marketed as a water-soluble gel containing liquefied tobacco. Basically, this liquid came in little packets that could be applied to the skin discreetly to deliver a dose of nicotine. However, most people didn't consider it a good alternative, as it contained a fraction of the nicotine in a cigarette. It was also never dermatologically tested, and no independent research was conducted into its safety. And now, with the rise of other cigarette alternatives like vaping, Nickel is no longer available.
In every squirt of Nickel, you've got a tenth of the tobacco that you normally find in a single cigarette.
Number 27. Dedicated GPS devices.
GPS check?
Yes, roger that. Okay.
Your destination is 2,560 miles ahead.
Wally World, here we come.
Once upon a time, handheld GPS devices seemed like the future in a box. You typed in your destination, anywhere you wanted to go, and boom, there were the exact directions to get there. No more paper maps, no more printing out directions on MapQuest. And by once upon a time, we mean like 10 years ago. But now, everyone has a GPS in their pocket, thanks to smartphones. And even if they don't, most modern cars come equipped with one already installed. Dedicated personal navigation assistants are still popular with certain outdoor enthusiasts, but for day-to-day use, their function has been taken over by other devices.
Make a right turn.
Wait, no. It means bear right.
No,
up there.
It said right. It said take a right.
Number 26. Asperum.
This is the cold and flu season with its occasional sore throats and aches and pains. That's why I carry Asperum, the sore throat medication that helps all over.
Just like GPS devices, Asperum once seemed revolutionary. Introduced in the 1920s, this was a medicinal chewing gum that contained aspirin. The gum itself was simply used as a delivery system, containing 227 milligrams of the drug, and coming in both cherry and orange flavors. Asperum was paramount in the discovery of aspirin's anti-blood clotting effects, and it helped the drug become widely used in mitigating the likes of strokes and heart attacks. Alas, the gum was finally discontinued in 2006.
Just one thing I gotta know. Got any aspirins?
Number 25. Library card catalogs.
Chances are you've never used one of the most important 20th century tools for library research, the card catalog.
Libraries are an important resource, but man, they were a pain in the butt before the advent of computers. It's incredibly difficult organizing thousands upon thousands of books, so a complex filing system was needed. Enter the card catalogs, which were basically enormous chests of drawers containing little cards on every book in the library. If you wanted a book, you had to know the author, title, or subject, then find the corresponding card in the seemingly endless sea of them. Once the card was finally found, it told you where the book was in the library, but thanks to online public access catalogs, now we can just type it into a computer and get the location instantly. Magic.
I am on a curiosity voyage, and I need my paddles to travel.
Number 24, Napster and Limewire.
Well, then what was your latest preneur?
Well, I founded an internet company that let folks download and share music for free.
Kind of like Napster?
They didn't last long, but the impacts that Napster and LimeWire had on the internet are indescribable. Launched in 1999, Napster popularized the concept of peer-to-peer file sharing, effectively giving birth to internet piracy. Of course, this resulted in a ton of backlash and legal difficulties, forcing the app to close for good in 2002. A number of alternatives emerged in its absence, including the enormously popular LimeWire, which by 2007 was installed on a third of the world's computers. The program was shut down in 2010, but the internet and the distribution of media was never the same.
Nearly 25 years ago, the way we accessed our favorite tunes changed overnight.
Number 23, Typewriters.
Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing.
Nothing beats the distinct clack, clack, clacking of a typewriter. From the late 1800s to the 1980s, offices were filled with choruses of that wonderful sound. Of course, typewriters are still used, whether by those with a fondness for old technology or in countries without reliable electrical power. But in most places, typewriters have long been made obsolete with the advent of computers. Keyboards are nice and all, and they still retain that classic QWERTY layout that typewriters introduced. They just aren't the same. In November of 2012, the self-proclaimed last typewriter made in the UK was produced by Brother and given to the London Science Museum. End of an era.
I found this typewriter next to the courtyard dumpster, an old Underwood 5 with original carriage return.
Number 22, Compact.
Maybe it's time to upgrade your old computer. Step up to a Compact Rosario by HP.
There were few tech companies bigger in the 1990s than Compact. Just goes to show you that anyone can go down. This business was once the largest supplier of PC systems and was widely known for making IBM PC-compatible computers. Unfortunately, the early 2000s was a very difficult time for Compact, and they could not compete with their main rival, Dell. Dell overtook Compact as the biggest supplier of PCs, and the bursting of the dot-com bubble essentially killed the company for good. It was bought by Hewlett-Packard in 2002 and remained as a brand of that company until 2013, when it was made defunct in the United States.
Just 3 years after making the biggest acquisition ever in the computer industry, that company threw in the towel, agreeing to sell itself to Hewlett-Packard, where its remnants remain today.
Number 21, Physical Encyclopedias.
Do you currently own a set of encyclopedias?
No, but try the classifieds. People sell everything in there.
We often take for granted just how useful the internet is. You want to know everything there is to know about, I don't know, horses? Clear an afternoon, move your fingers a couple of times, and read to your heart's content. That convenience was unheard of just a couple of decades ago. Encyclopedias were fun and all, but they were large, heavy, inconvenient, and took up a ton of space in your home. That is, even if you had a personal set and didn't rely on the library for them. Encyclopedias have been around for centuries, and they still exist in different forms, but those forms are mostly online. Sorry to say, but there's a little place for physical encyclopedias in our increasingly digital age.
Now, what do you know about vulcanized rubber?
Spock's birth control.
You need these books.
Number 20, Laserdisc.
Consumer reporter Pat McConaughey is here with a look at the latest electronic wonder.
Despite being huge in Japan and Southeast Asia, Laserdisc never really took off in North America. While it offered better quality than VHS, the latter stomped Laserdisc in the home video market, largely owing to the fact that it was cheaper and could record live TV, which Laserdisc could not. Still, Laserdisc found its niche, especially amongst film enthusiasts who loved its unparalleled video and audio quality and special features. It also influenced the development of DVDs, which supplanted VHS in the early 2000s. The last movie on Laserdisc was released in 2001, and the format was completely abandoned by 2009.
Filmmakers and film fans have embraced this format, but only in the last couple of years has it really started to take off.
Number 19, Kudos. It's hard to go wrong with a good old-fashioned granola bar, but the real kicker is that Kudos bars were all a part of a sugary, well-balanced breakfast.
Teasing, Kudos, I'm yours. I'm yours.
While they definitely had more flavor than nutrition, that didn't stop them from becoming a staple breakfast treat in the 80s and 90s.
Electrifying, granola fire.
Still, over time, their name recognition started to dwindle. Then in 2017, a comment on the company's Facebook page confirmed that Kudos bars were officially discontinued. Given the unceremonious nature of its goodbye, we aren't crossing our fingers for a relaunch anytime soon. But you gotta give it kudos for one thing, that theme song never gets old.
Kudos, I'm yours, I'm yours.
Number 18, PB Crisps. Since their mascot is an actual peanut, it's safe to say Planters pretty much corners the market on all things nuts. As if to prove it, they entered the 90s by introducing a whole new way to enjoy their product. Enter PB Crisps, the so-called peanut butter with a crunch.
The center's so sweet. Peanut butter cream. Oh, a treat.
The cream-filled cookies were a massive hit, at least for the people who tried them. The crisp disappeared after just 3 years on shelves with no official explanation as to why. That hasn't stopped people from talking about them though.
PB Crisps and new chocolate, yes, chocolate crisps from Planters.
To this day, fans are still clamoring for a return of PB Crisps. There's even a website for it and everything. Number 17, CD binders.
I got you something. It's called a CD player. It cost me like $700, but the sound quality's outstanding.
Oh, CDs. You had a good run. The aforementioned laserdiscs also influenced the development of CDs, which were all the rage from the mid-80s to their slow dissolution throughout the 2000s. To organize their music collections, many people used cute little binders full of plastic sleeves. These binders kept things neat and were easily browsable. However, with the demise of the CD came the demise of CD binders. It's a shame, because scrolling through our phones has nothing on the satisfaction of flipping through a binder.
Honey, I'm gonna save you some time. 200 CDs, not one of them in the right case.
Number 16, Delia's catalog. Even by today's standards, having the latest and greatest fashion trends sent right to your door is a pretty compelling offer. In the 90s, it was practically a must-have. Delia's catalog presented itself as more of a magazine than of a store, and that novel approach gave it a chokehold on the decade's fashion sense.
Because there was little to no competition in the teen market, Delia's was able to thrive.
But since the novelty of catalog orders wore off, the brand was left without anything to stand on. Later, when online shopping officially took over, Delia's once famous catalog quietly went out of print. The company's product is still around today, just without the paper version, or the brand recognition.
With crop tops, corsets, lingerie-inspired pieces, and micro miniskirts, the Delia's today is a far cry from the tween-friendly brand it started as.
Number 15, PDAs. For as cool as a personal digital assistant sounds, there's just no need for one anymore.
Doris, the personal digital assistant from Sharp.
Everything that made it unique in the 80s is now commonplace in basically any smart device on the market. Internet access, messaging, reminders, smartphones and computers do all of that, and so much more. The steady decline of PDA sales reflects as much. Just ask Apple. Their entire company almost went under after banking hard on the Apple Newton.
Hey, Dolph, take a memo on your Newton. Beat up Martin.
It also served as a cautionary tale for their competitors, most of whom have since abandoned their PDA lines. Fortunately, the tech went to good use, and several of those companies began manufacturing cell phones instead. Number 14, Netscape Navigator. This wasn't just a web browser, this was the web browser.
It seemed as if nothing could stop the driving force on the web browser marketplace that was Netscape.
Netscape Navigator's intuitive user interface helped popularize internet use, and the company was rewarded for that with incredible word of mouth. But every industry needs some healthy competition, and soon enough, Microsoft entered the ring with Internet Explorer. Accompanied by PC bundles and an unprecedented marketing blitz, the new browser utterly destroyed Netscape's rule. In fact, Microsoft's launch was so aggressive, the US Court of Law officially called it an illegal monopoly. But by then, the damage was already done. Netscape Navigator never earned back its audience and officially went off the grid in 2008.
Did you know you were still using Netscape Navigator?
Number 13, Orbits. On paper, this infamous drink doesn't sound too bad. It was non-carbonated, relatively healthy, and even had several different fruit flavors.
Well, first off, we have vanilla orange.
However, the real issue had nothing to do with the drink's taste. It was that Orbits wasn't fully liquid. See, the entire pitch is that Orbits are small, gelatinous orbs that dissolve in your mouth.
Everybody was picking it up, checking it out.
As you can imagine, people didn't like having to eat their drink. Orbits were reviewed poorly and sold even worse. To put it into perspective, they only lasted a single measly year into production before going AWOL. These days, the only place to find an Orbits is from a collector.
I really do wish Orbits would come back. but knowing full well the capabilities of Clearly Canadian at the moment, it's not gonna happen.
Number 12, floppy disks. In 1996, there were an estimated 5 billion of these flimsy disks in use, and that's just counting the standard version.
Come on, guys! I thought you knew better. Don't copy that, floppy!
And yet, by 2007, floppy disks were already collecting dust. The culprit behind their sharp decline in sales is primarily USB drives. Oh, and memory cards. Then cloud storage. Floppy disks simply weren't made to keep up with the rapid influx in memory technology. If anything, they took up more space than they saved.
The manufacturing of the diskettes is over, and so all of the diskettes that will be made have been made.
Their legacy isn't all doom and gloom, though. In order to make the transition easier on consumers, several computing companies use the floppy disk image as their save icon. So really, it's like they're still with us.
Everything was much easier when it was just floppy disks.
Number 11, 3G phones. The third generation of smartphones had a lot of winners. The iPhone 5, the Galaxy S9, and the Google Pixel 2, just to name a few. But as with any growing industry, there will always be a day where one era powers off so another can click on. It's not like 3G devices got canceled or anything. It's just that their framework needed to be upgraded to match the newest standards. After all, why bother keeping 3G around when 4G is technologically superior? Not to mention 5G. As a result of the industry's innovation, most third-generation phones will lose support by the end of 2024, and that's if they haven't already. Number 10, answering machines. It's not really fair to say that answering machines don't exist anymore. Rather, they just don't sell as well as they used to, or really at all.
Gotta change my answering machine now that I'm alone.
It's tragic because their cousin, the voicemail, is still a very prevalent part of cellular communication, but the silver bullet of answering machines is that they're specifically tied to a person's home landline. Since those are quickly becoming extinct, the answering machine is going down with them.
Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep.
Technically, you can still call any of them up and get the same voicemail-like message, but unless there's a major change in the market, answering machines are not long for the tech world.
Believe it or not, I'm not home.
Number 9, Kodak cameras. This Kodak moment ended in a camera flash. Even though they were the ones to develop the first self-contained digital camera, the company's higher-ups were extremely hesitant to shift their brand away from film rolls.
The most accurate, realistic color in print film is here.
That proved to be a fatal error, and by the time Kodak started playing catch-up, the digital market had already left them in the dust. Following a decade of rocky finances, the company officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2012.
Once great company files for bankruptcy, and now they're trying to build with whatever you can.
Thankfully, there's a happy ending for Kodak. The brand emerged from their financial woes with a new focus on printing, supplying film, and later, pharmaceuticals. But the same can't be said for their camera production. Number 8, Walkman. Way back when, Sony built a product based on the idea of cassettes on the go, and the industry hasn't been the same since.
Sony introduces the only cassette player as small as a cassette case.
The Walkman proved to be so absurdly popular, it became ubiquitous with the very concept of portable music.
You just leave it all up to me.
Including Sony's own Discman line, it's to the point that the word revolutionary doesn't feel like it does the Walkman justice. While it was inevitably overtaken by the rise of smartphones, this portable player still lives on as an iconic piece of 20th century pop culture.
Sony introduces the only cassette player as small as a cassette case. The incredible sounding Super Walkman.
Sure, it ended production in 2010, but with over 200 million units made, odds are the Walkman's legacy won't be forgotten anytime soon. Number 7, Tab. Surprisingly enough, the Coca-Cola company's first ever diet drink wasn't actually Diet Coke, it was Tab, a sugarless soda marketed to those who wanted to quote-unquote keep tabs on their weight. As one of the first beverages to tap into the diet market, Tab was an instant success. But it came under friendly fire when the Coca-Cola company introduced Diet Coke in 1982. Just like that, Tab lost its only claim to fame. However, its passionate audience was enough to keep it around for almost another 40 years. But despite their efforts, the drink shipped its last case in 2020. Coke hasn't kept tabs on it since. Number 6, phone booths. If you're looking on the side of busy roads, you're more likely to find a Wi-Fi hotspot than a phone booth.
Pull you back!
Quite frankly, the change has been a long time coming. Ever since smartphones became the communication standard, payphones have been left in a dire place. As you can imagine, it's even worse for phone booths. Almost every single one in the United States has been torn up or converted, and that's getting off lucky compared to some other countries.
Excuse me, I'm trying to make a call here.
In Belgium, Denmark, Norway, and more, you couldn't find a working phone booth even if you wanted to. At this rate, it'll only be a few years before phone booths stop ringing worldwide.
What were they used for? In New York? Bathrooms.
Number 5. Pontiacs. General Motors revved up a lot of cars in the 20th century. So much so that they could afford to sell their Pontiac brands as less of a vehicle and more of a lifestyle.
The 65 Pontiac GTO. It's the swingin'est car.
In the late 50s specifically, this type of car was a status symbol, but as the years went on, it became a symbol that people cared less and less about. Pontiac had restructured before to great success, and they might have been able to do it again if not for the economic crash of 2008. Up against intense financial pressure, GM gave Pontiac one last lap before retiring it for good in 2010.
Pontiac, fuel for the soul.
Number 4. Blackberry Phones. Before Android and iOS dominated the cell phone space, there was a third contender in the ring.
For much of the mid to late 2000s, Research in Motion's BlackBerry was the most popular smartphone brand in the US, and it wasn't close.
Well, actually, there was 4, but Sony's Ericsson phones failed to put up much of a fight. BlackBerry, on the other hand, was a worthwhile rival during the 2000s.
What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry.
Their name recognition was second to none, and they had the slick product to back it up, at least at first. Unfortunately, they couldn't evolve fast enough to match the ever-changing landscape.
Introducing the new BlackBerry Classic, with more power and control than ever before.
As Android and iOS flourished into the 2010s, BlackBerry lost almost 3/4 of its sales numbers. Their last product came out in 2018, and no one's heard anything from them since. Number 3. VCR. They didn't call it appointment television for nothing.
Muriel, you're missing your favorite show.
For decades, if you wanted to watch something on TV, you had to be in the right place, at the right time, on the right channel. Then, out of nowhere, came the VCR. Suddenly, all it took was a handy VHS tape, and you could record anything on TV for future viewing.
Suppose it's over 3 hours. Relax. Panasonic VHS tapes up to 4 hours of sports, movies, specials on one cassette.
It completely changed the game, and immediately everybody wanted in on the profit. In came DVDs, which were easier, cheaper, and more reliable than VHS tapes. When that sank, the need for videocassette players went with it. The very last VCR manufacturer ceased production in 2016.
Have you ever heard of a VCR?
No, I haven't.
Number 2. MP3 Players. The music business is a tough place to stay relevant in. Case in point, Microsoft's epic failure in the Zune.
Don't tell me this is Zune bad.
But for every one of those, there was the iPod, a music player that just did everything right.
Everyone wants the iPod. It's a huge hit. It is almost a Christmas miracle.
And yet, even that couldn't stay afloat forever. The story is the same all around. They all failed to stay relevant. Just as soon as MP3 players reached their stride, smartphones had developed enough to do the exact same thing. The iPhone eclipsing the iPod is a good metaphor for what happened to just about every MP3 player on the market. Nobody needed them anymore. And that's that.
Tunes? Got my old iPod. We could rock out.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Internet Explorer. From Netscape Navigator's ashes, Microsoft grew a web browser with a legacy that speaks for itself.
Internet Explorer was a fixture on nearly all Windows PCs from the mid-1990s to the mid-2000s.
At its peak, Internet Explorer had an absolute gargantuan 95% market share. If that doesn't speak to its status, nothing will. Unfortunately for Microsoft, the browser war didn't end there.
You see, Microsoft tried to set its early versions of IE apart from its competitors by focusing on adding new features rather than simply trying to make the browser as fast as possible.
Firefox, Google Chrome, and Safari all entered the fray in the coming years, each taking a noticeable chunk out of Internet Explorer's user base.
So with that, IE's market share dropped precipitously, and yet Microsoft still didn't seem to be seriously trying to address the problem.
Eventually, the once mighty browser was forced to cut its losses and relaunch as the new and improved Microsoft Edge. Given how quickly it lost support among both users and developers, it's clear that Internet Explorer 12 isn't coming anytime soon. Do you miss any of these products? Let us know in the comments below.
You know, I sometimes forget you've missed out on the last 30 years.
Did you enjoy this video?
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.